What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Phillip Jordan Show. I am Phillip Jordan from Last Word on College Football on 96.9 The Legend in Dothan, Alabama, where I'm the in-studio host and producer, Dothan Woods Football. On today's podcast, we're going to be talking part two with Michael Rinker from WDHN. Finally, part two is coming your way. And in part two, we talk West Virginia football and basketball and some Washington Commanders talk. So with West Virginia football, Neil Brown on the hot seat, and we talk about Bob Huggins going into the Hall of Fame finally in basketball. And then after that, we're going to look at some spring games. Spring games galore this weekend. Now, I'm not going to go over all of them. There's a handful of spring games I'm going to give my thoughts on after part two with Michael Rinker. It's going to be quarterback heavy, just going to warn y'all, but y'all shouldn't be shocked on me knowing how much I love that position. And then the most important part of today's podcast will be Doritos. What is the best Doritos? Very important stuff here on the Phillip Jordan Show. Before we jump into part two with Michael Rinker, just let you guys know you can find me in the podcast. You can find me on social media at PJordanSEC. Podcast is available on all your favorite podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. The Phillip Jordan Show is there. You can always email me at sports.philipjordan@gmail.com. Now, part two with Michael Rinker. Talking about the Big 12 and your Mountaineers, they got some pretty. Obviously, they didn't make the tournament this year, which was
No.
when I saw Huggins on one of the studio shows during the tournament. I was like, hold up, they're not in the tournament. What's up
No.
with this? He's a mainstay. Cincinnati through not his time in West Virginia, but he is going into the Hall of Fame, or known as the Huggy Bear.
Yep.
Just your thoughts. Obviously, that's where you went to school. You went to West Virginia. What does he mean to that university from someone that went to school there?
Yeah, and he's from West Virginia, so I think he kind of just embodies everything that the people love about the culture of West Virginia. So for him to be there and having the success he really as much had throughout his tenure as a Mountaineers head coach, why did it take so long? I think that's what many people in West Virginia are asking. Why did it take so long? Because if you stack up his wins against the other inductees this year, it's like he's got 916. He's top 5 all time. Why is he just now getting in the Hall of
Yeah.
Fame? But he means so much to the state. I remember one of my first few weeks at school there as a freshman. I'm leaving the student center and I'm about to go grab the door. He opens it from the other side and he's like, "Come on out, son." And I was like, "You don't know who I am, but I know who you are." And he was just, I mean, he's just a normal guy. Loves basketball, loves the people of West Virginia, loves being a Mountaineer. So he means everything in the state. We can talk about his future in terms of him adapting to the state of basketball today. Obviously, this year's not what we wanted. We'll see what the transfer portal is just obliterating both football and basketball for a
It's
lot of
so hard
schools that are. It's so hard. Um,
it's so hard to keep up with who's going
mhm.
where and everything because we got spring college football going on right now. And as you look at these rosters, like it's a day-to-day thing. I do not
Yeah.
envy the people now who put the magazines together, the
Oh
preseason
no,
magazines.
you'll have one person there one day, and then they're on a different team in a
Mm-mm.
different side of the country the next.
And I will say this for West Virginia, watching them play, just as a fan, I think other teams do not like playing them because
Mm-mm.
one, a Bob Huggins team is going to play defense.
Yes, and
That's number
scrappy.
one. Yes, they are going to be an irritant. They are going to aggravate you and annoy you the entire 40 minutes of basketball. And they're so well coached. Like I said, we know 16 17 this year did not have a good year, but you got Phil. But NIL. Let's see how coaches adjust. But if you play good defense, you're going to win a lot of games. And so
Yeah.
I'll be intrigued. I mean, what do you think the future of West Virginia basketball is?
Um, I really don't know. The recruiting has been decent, but then I've seen a lot of people have transferred out. I think almost every starter this year will not be returning next year. And I think total we have 4 guys on the entire roster coming back. So it's going to be a challenge, I would say. The immediate future, long term, that defensive mentality that has been with West Virginia, honestly, probably predating Bob Huggins. It may have to change. You never know. Because our offensive efficiency rating this year was towards the bottom of the Division One basketball. It was pretty bad. So that has been a kind of our Achilles heel the last few years. We'll have a few guys who could score the rock, like Miles McBride. He's now in the NBA. Taz Sherman was a good scorer, but outside of that, we just didn't have too many scorers. And I think you need that. I can't remember the last time a team won a national championship with a guy who wasn't solidified going to the NBA because he could just score the rock. And we haven't had that for some time. Deshaun Butler, 2010, when we went to the Final Four, that was our guy. It's hard to look back and say we need more guys like that when the game's moving and changing every single week. So I don't know. We'll just have to sit back and relax. I hope Bob Huggins can turn it around, get us back in the tournament, back into getting 4-star recruits like it's nothing. But for now, we're just gonna have to deal with what we have, and just hope for the best.
Now, the football team. Now, as we're on the West Virginia topic, I want to ask you this: as someone that's a fan, an alumni, they do not make sense, in my opinion, in the Big 12. I was actually kind of hoping when the realignment stuff was going on last year, I was like, this would be the perfect time for them to go to the ACC with the Big 12 falling apart, but they didn't. And maybe that's something down the road. Who knows what happens with how alignment of college football will change. But for you, I mean, is it still a weird thing? I mean, they've been in the Big 12 for several years now, but it just feels like that's just a weird fit, which Missouri and the SEC is too as well. But I mean, we can get in that topic, but just your thoughts, do you think they would be better fit in the ACC?
I think we really much would. Obviously, you have geographical argument. We're near all those teams. Pittsburgh's an hour away. Most of those coastal schools are not too far. Certainly not as far as Oklahoma State, Iowa State, Kansas State. We're traveling across the country every other week. And for basketball and other sports, it's you could be in Oklahoma one night, back in West Virginia, and then 3 days later you're back in Texas. I mean, that's a lot on the kids to handle sports and athletics. So from that standpoint, yeah, we should be in the ACC. I think the main reason we're not, obviously can't confirm this, is the academic side of the argument. The ACC doesn't want us. We're not that boisterous of a academic school, and I think we would compete in the ACC pretty well, football and basketball wise. Obviously, you have Tech, Pitt. Those two of our biggest rivals of all time. I would love for us to get some non-conference games. We just played Maryland, which is a pretty good rivalry. So yeah, we need to be back in the ACC. Will it ever happen? I don't know. I think the Big Ten, we may have a bigger chance, but even then, it's still probably a long shot. So we'll see.
Yeah, you brought Maryland. That's another team that is not in the right conference. It just don't seem right there in the Big Ten. I forget that sometimes.
I don't know why they moved. It didn't make any sense. Well, I guess they went. No, they were in the ACC. They weren't in the Big East. Money, yeah, and it sucks. It sucks. That's why we're in the Big 12, probably, because we went from the Big East, a Group of 5 conference, to now we're in the Power 5. So
yeah, it's like with Texas and Oklahoma. Why would you want to leave the Big 12 to go to the SEC, which is you're not the big dog by no means. When you come in there, there's like 6 big dogs already.
Yeah,
and now
Texas might be like the 7th or 8th best team in the conference for football.
Yeah, maybe. Just from and Oklahoma maybe more. So it's, but it's like we said, the money talks there. But West Virginia football be going into year 4 under Neil Brown. Now he is 17-18 so far. Now last 2 years they won 6 games, went to a bowl game, split. But is there any pressure, you think, on Neil Brown going into year 4?
There definitely has to be. At year 4, you haven't seen much growth, I think, but it's hard to tell with the pandemic and now the transfer portal. Like, we just lost Akeem Mesidor, one of our top sack guys, who said he didn't feel safe on campus after, I guess, a teammate got stabbed. I don't know too much about that. But yeah, I definitely think, I don't want to say he's on the hot seat, but I think if it's 5 or less wins, there's a good chance he may not come back next year. So I think this is the year where we really got to make a splash. We have 2 young quarterbacks in Garrett Green and blanket on the kids that's coming in from Arizona, 4-star recruit, but he's Nico something. I don't know. He's out of Chandler, Arizona. So we got young quarterbacks. We got some decent talent coming back from the receiving core. So I think, this year we need to at least hit 8 wins. It's sad to say let's hit 8, but I think that's what Neil Brown really needs to shoot for. Because I don't think anybody should expect West Virginia football year in and year out to win 10 games, because we haven't done that in almost 15 years. And sometimes you got to look at the program for what it is and just base your expectations off on that. So my hope, 8-4, maybe shock one of the Oklahoma schools. We haven't beaten them since we joined the conference. But yeah, I would definitely say Neil Brown needs a solid year, both offensively and defensively, and we'll see.
Yeah, because I was looking at. I know they bring in Graham Harrell to be the offense coordinator, and of course he's coming from USC, and his background, he's going to want to throw the ball out. Which Neil Brown just if anybody remembers back to his Troy days, they were, a spread team, but they ran the ball a lot. Jordan Chun
Yeah.
was a big part of that. So that's going to be interesting to me. Of course, you mentioned 2 new quarterbacks, got to replace Letty Brown at running
Yeah.
back,
It's
which
gonna be
was a
huge.
big one. So he's got a tall task on his hand replacing, quarterback because what was quarterback's name?
Jared Deggy.
Yeah, I always called him Dodge for some. I wanted to say Dodge for some reason.
Yeah.
But anyways, so you got to replace your quarterback. He threw for over 3,000 yards, I think 19
Mm-hmm.
touchdown passes last year. So you got to replace your quarterback and find running backs, and then you're kind of. I would think there would be a melding of the two philosophies between Neil Brown, the head coach, and him. Not as pass happy maybe as he was, but not as run happy as Neil Brown can be. So
Yeah.
that's intriguing with West Virginia. That whole dynamic between what Neil Brown likes to do versus what Graham Harrell's going to want to do.
Yeah, we'll see. I would love to throw the ball more, but obviously, if you don't have the quarterback, because Jared Deggy, he could definitely make some throws, but he made some decisions that maybe made you scratch your head, and he wasn't as consistent as you would hope. So we'll see. It's not going to be like the days of Geno Smith in 2012 year or Pat White. I would love to see us bring back the option like Pat White and Steve Slayton had it. But yeah, we will see. I don't have too many expectations, but that means, hey, we can only go up.
Speaking of expectations, we got to talk about, obviously, you're from that area. You're a fan of the Washington sports
Yeah.
landscape. The Washington Commanders. First up, I will admit, I didn't want to tell you this off air because I wanted to get your reaction. I have accidentally called them in podcast form the Commandos. I don't know how many
The
times
Commandos.
it just came
Better
out. It just
name.
which would way things run by Dan Snyder. Maybe that should have been the name you should have went with. But
Hmm.
just the name. What was your reaction that morning it came out that they were going to be the Washington Commanders?
So I actually had seen there was a leak of, I don't know how the team allows this to happen. One of the local news, TV news stations was flying their helicopter over the stadium, and they zoomed in on a camera of a team store, and the Commanders was all over it. So it's like, there's no way. But on the 2nd of February, when they released that name, I was like, there's so many names that could excite people to want to be a fan again. And you pick the Commanders. Um, not a big fan of it. Then, I mean, at this point, Washington football team would have been better than any of the names that they had picked. If I would have had to pick, I would have said the Red Hogs. Pay homage to back in the day when O line, D line was the Hogs. We had fans dressed up as the Hogs, so it's kind of give some of the older fans meet them in the middle. But yeah, not a big fan of Commanders.
Yeah, I was hoping too, just as a fan of the league and the history of the NFL, if you went with something with hogs in it, because like you
Mm-hmm.
said, that's homage to when the red. I almost said it. When the Washington football team, Washington Commanders, were one of the what they were, the offensive line, and then of
Yeah.
course you had the fans and stuff like that. I think a lot of people would have got behind that if you called them anything with hogs in it. Commanders just seems like it's just basic. It's just a
Yeah.
generic. It's just a generic name, kind of like when Cleveland, the baseball team,
Mm-hmm.
rebranded to the Guardians.
Yeah.
It sounds very basic. Doesn't sound creative. It just sounds like, okay, we are trying to make sure this is a name that won't get us in trouble. Maybe I don't know, but
Mm-hmm.
the Hogs wouldn't have either.
No.
It's just a very generic name.
And to me, it just makes me scratch my head because whoever was in the front office making those decisions, they had a firsthand look at another professional team with hundreds of years of history having to change their name. And then they made the change to the Guardians. And from what I saw, it was largely, not liked. People were talking down
Mm-mm.
on it on Twitter quite frequently. And if I was inside of the Washington football team's front office and witnessing that, maybe let's not go with the safe pick of Commanders. And I don't think a lot of people are excited for it. I'm a fan of the jerseys. I like that we have a difference, like finally a variation. We have a black jersey. That's something we've been burgundy and gold and white for 100 years now. It's nice to see a change, and not the yellow. Those yellow color rush jerseys were awful, and there's a reason we never wore them. So we're gonna take it as what it is. It's nothing new. We dealt with a lot worse. Obviously, the allegations that have come out alongside of the whole name change have been far worse than anything dealing with the name. Um, yeah, and then we just have to talk about the play on the field, which we haven't been able to talk about for years because there's so much hoopla with Dan Snyder.
Well, on the field, you're gonna have a new quarterback,
Hmm.
Carson Wentz, and he's frustrating. to me because I still remember 2017. If he hadn't blown out his knee, he's going to be the MVP of the league. And, that's the
Yeah.
year they go on to win the Super Bowl with Nick Foles. He has not looked right since. He makes very head scratching throws. And
Mm-hmm.
Colts, he played well at times with the Colts, but then obviously the way it ended, they parted ways. Now they got Matt Ryan. And part of that for me, I wonder if the Washington front office is now thinking, okay, we got Carson Wentz, and maybe you can argue we upgraded quarterback, which I like Tyler Heineke, what he does, Taylor Heineke. But at the same time, you maybe could have traded for Matt Ryan too. So anyway, where are you at on
Yeah.
Carson Wentz?
It's like it's just another like okay trade. I don't hate it, don't necessarily love it. Because as you were talking about, he is going to make a lot of us fans, and we haven't seen it because we've only seen him when he's played as the Eagles quarterback, and he usually played really well against us. Um, I think we're all going to have to hold our breath, almost like with RG3 his rookie year, where every time he took off, you're like, oh no, he's going to break his body. Um, I think we gave up a little too much for him, plus eating all of his contract.
Yeah.
But in terms of next year, I think it's not a major upgrade. I do think it's a slight upgrade. And I think he moves the dial from hoping to win 7 games that max we're going to win 9 games and maybe squeak into the playoffs. So I don't know. I think comparing the other free agents and what's to come in the draft, he's one of the better options we could have went with. Now, Matt Ryan, I don't know if I would have wanted that contract. It's a big contract, but it's not. I don't think it's as long as Wentz's. Off the top of my head, I don't know though.
So kind of close it up. Obviously we got the draft coming up within a month. Obviously it's a team with a lot of needs.
Mm-hmm.
What would you hope, or where would you go with that first pick?
It's so hard to tell because I think it's got to be offensive lineman or a receiver. I think you don't go and get Wentz and then not upgrade his options at all. Like I love Terry McLaurin. He's going to be a very good receiver for many years, but if he's the only option, he's going to get doubled. He's going to get safety help all the time. He's going to get blown up on the inside. So whether it's an Ohio State guy like Chris Olave or even Drake London from USC, we got to go with a receiver. Something tells me they're going to trade back. There's not going to be anything at it's slipping my mind what pick we have. It's not 11, is it? It might be 11.
Yes,
It is
I
11.
think it's 11.
So I think O-line, because losing Brandon Sheriff is going to be tough to really swallow. Granted, he was good for 10 games a year, but O-line or receiver, I think that's where we have to go.
That's going to be interesting. It'd be nice to see them get that franchise get good again. Whatever their name is called, and hopefully they'll have a new owner here very soon. Maybe some good things that happen toward that, which I know there will be rejoicing in the streets among
there will
Washington professional football fans. I'll just say that when that happens. But and this has been fun, Michael, having you on
on
the pod this week. Let people out there know where they can find you and check out everything you're doing.
Of course, like we said at the beginning of the show, Channel 18, if you're here in the Wiregrass, WDHN News, you can tune in to 5 to 7 in the morning if you're an early riser. If not, that's okay. There's an 11 to 12 p.m. show that you can also watch. You can follow me on Twitter. Now that I'm in news, I somewhat tweet about news, but most of it's still sports talk. So my Twitter is mrinker TV on Twitter. And then if you want to find me on Facebook, there's my professional page or my personal account. You just find it there. Yeah, and that's where you can find me.
All right, sounds good, Michael. And I appreciate the time, and I look forward to doing some time down the road.
Yes, sir. Always appreciate.
Once again, thanks to Michael Rinker for coming on the show. And if you missed part 1 last week, go check it out. Go download the podcast. Go download the episode. It's on YouTube. If you want to see the video form of it, it's there. So go and check it out. I think you will enjoy it. And last week we had the Michigan spring game. Yes, Syracuse and Louisville played last week in their spring games. I only talked about Michigan on last week's podcast. There's 3 episodes of the podcast coming at you this week. At the closing, I'll let you guys know who's coming on throughout the rest of the week. But this week, loaded with spring games. Now, I'm not going to go over every single one of them. I have not watched all of them. So maybe throughout the week, after the guest interviews we're having this week, I will go over some more of the spring games and my thoughts. Of course, we got more spring games this week, and we have the USFL kicking off. A bunch of cool stuff I'm going to talk about next week on Monday's show. which Monday next we'll figure out. By Thursday's podcast, I'll tell you what's going on with Monday's episode. But this week, the ones I'm going to talk about: Clemson, Auburn, A&M. Not as much Florida State, but I have a gripe. Now, there's a bunch of North Carolina, and not talking about Kentucky spring game for this reason only. On Tuesday, I'll be joined by Kevin McGuffey, my colleague over at Last Word on College Football. He covers Kentucky. So we're going to break down Kentucky that whole episode. That's what that's going to be about, is Kentucky football. So that's why you're not getting a Kentucky breakdown here. And Purdue played, Nebraska played their spring game, Arizona played theirs. There was a bunch of spring games this week, but I'm only going to talk about these on this episode. But like I said, as the week goes on, I have a chance to go and rewatch and check out some of those spring games. I'll let you guys know my thoughts. Now, these I'm going to talk about a lot of quarterback talk, but anybody that has followed me a long time knows with football, love sport, my favorite position is the quarterback. I'm just so intrigued by that position. That's why you see me constantly writing quarterback articles when I can for Last Word on College Football. So we're going to jump into Clemson first. And Boston College played theirs. I have not got a chance to watch that one either. There was just so many of them on this weekend. Didn't get a chance to check them all out, but I ain't planning on doing that in the near future. The Clemson, the orange and white game, Whites won 15-7. Now, we'll bookend in this with the same thoughts, but ACC Network, I was very aggravated with you this week because you were cutting off games. I didn't get to see all these spring games, the ones I was watching on ACC Network. Very aggravating what they did there, but we'll get to that a little bit more when we talk about the Florida State spring game to a degree. I'm not even breaking that one down, but you'll know what I'm talking about when I get to it. But the quarterbacks, and this is not what I was going into thinking we're going to be talking about the quarterbacks. We're talking about one, DJ, who was 17-36 for Clemson, 175 yards, excuse me. He had some solid moments. Offensive line was an issue for Clemson, but a lot of times these spring games, you don't have everybody there. They could not run the ball in this one. The defense is going to be good. We know Clemson's going to be good defensively. That is a given. This is a team that was 10-3 last year. Offense struggled most of the year. The offense was not good. Not what you expect out of a Clemson team. And that started the quarterback and offensive line. They just could not consistently get anything going. I think the receivers were also not up to par for what we're used to seeing at Clemson as well. Now, freshman Cade Klubnik, 15-23. He had 106 yards, 1 touchdown. He showed some very good value as a runner. He's more the runner of these two quarterbacks. Now, running backs, Will Shipley and Kobe Pace did not play in this game. Clemson has a team minus 35. Like I said, this Clemson defense is going to be good all year. Even if the offense is not good again this year, you can probably still look at this team as a 9-10 win team because how good that defense is going to be at Clemson. I know Brent Venables is gone, but the philosophies are still there. The talent's still there. So Clemson should be fine. But, DJ just overthrew some passes. It looked like he did last year at times. He overthrew a lot of passes, not consistent. He's got all the talent in the world. I mean, this was a guy people were pegging as the Heisman Trophy winner last year, Heisman Trophy candidate, and he just has not shown it. And Klubnik showed some potential. I don't think he'll be the quarterback day one for Clemson. I don't. But he's shown he can push now. He can push for that top spot. And like I said, he has that running ability that, of course, DJ does not have. And so that it's going to be interesting going what happens with them. I believe they should be the favorite in ACC, without a doubt, going into the season. But is this team a national championship team? What I watched, and you guys take this with every spring game. Y'all can take into consideration these are scrimmages. The very vanilla offense is not what you're going to see in the season, all that stuff. But just going what I saw, I did not feel that enthusiastic about the quarterback situation or the offense for Clemson. And going now, I'm not quite sure. Is this a playoff? Is it a playoff team? Okay, perhaps you can go through the ACC undefeated. Whatever. Is this team that you feel can win a national title? I don't know. But the quarterback situation is just not what it was. When they've won championships before, it's when they had an elite quarterback and they had an NFL quality quarterback in Trevor Lawrence and Deshaun Watson. They don't have that on the roster right now. Not what I'm seeing. Not what I saw last year, and not what I've seen here, because I don't think Klubnik's at that level yet. Maybe he can get there with another year of development. I mean, he's just a freshman, but other than that, I mean, DJ, he is not an NFL quarterback. Now jump into Auburn. Of course, y'all know that's the guy I predominantly cover over at Last Word on College Football, and quarterbacks took center stage in this one, and that was what everybody's going to look at. And you'll see in my article that's going to come out sometime this week on the 8A. I didn't go too much into defense. I gave it a paragraph. I couldn't gather much from the defense this game. They got a lot of leaders they got to replace. Jacoby McClain is one of. You got Roger McCreary in the secondary. Now, Derek Hall, you have him. Nehemiah Pritchett's going to step up in secondary. He's going to be one of the leaders there. Owen Papo, which he didn't play. There's some guys that just didn't play either in this one. With quarterbacks, TJ Finley, who followed me for any time, I'm not a big fan of. I don't think he's that good. I don't think he's a SEC starting quarterback. Robbie Ashford, he's the one everybody's talking about. And Holden Garner, the freshman coming in from the state of Georgia. Of course, you hear me mention, they said, where's Zach Calzada? Transfer from Texas A&M. He did not play. He's injured. He's been dealing with a shoulder issue. So the competition is wide open, which I believe as Calzada did participate in the spring to the full extent all these other quarterbacks did. We still would have a quarterback competition going into the fall. And isn't it nice to talk about the Auburn football team and actually talk about football, not the Brian Harsin circus that we had, a couple months ago now, about a month or two ago. Anyways, TJ Finley, 11 of 19, 137 yards, 1 touchdown. He did start 5 of 7 to a 20-yard touchdown pass to Malcolm Johnson, which, when you look at replay, it looked like he probably dropped that one. Robbie Ashford was 12 of 16, 132. Did throw a touchdown pass. He had a drive that looked like they was going to score a touchdown. They missed a field goal there, chip shot. Now, they did go back and re-kick it, but Brian Harsin didn't count it. He just wanted to end the possession on a positive, as he said, to the TV crew there. Like I said, Garner, 9 of 11, 71 yards, 1 touchdown. He didn't get in until the fourth quarter. Toward the end, Auburn played 8-minute quarters here. There were some depth issues in this game, so it wasn't a true splitting of the rosters, or there was not that. So the way the score went, it was Team Tigers, Team Auburn. Of course, one end zone says Tigers, one end zone says Auburn. So whichever end zone it was scored in or side it was scored in, that's who got the points there. So it's not like some of the other spring games where they split them and one team gets steak, the other gets hot dogs. It wasn't that kind of spring game. But Ashford showed a lot of potential. Oregon transfer. There's a lot of people already saying, well, Auburn's already won the Bo Nix, Robbie Ashford trade because Bo Nix going to Oregon. Like I said, Ashford coming from Oregon to Auburn. He showed a lot of athleticism, ran the ball very well. There's a lot of plays. Obviously, spring games quarterbacks aren't getting hit. They're not getting touched. They're not going to be able to do what they normally could do. So when you have a running quarterback, it does limit what they're able to do, what they can do in that setting. But there were some plays. I thought if this was a real game, if they were live, he would have made some big runs for Auburn. There was a touchdown, the one where I told you where the field goal was missed and he didn't get any points on a long drive. He would have scored on there, but he just got touched and they rolled him down like you do in these games. And then Garner comes in. It's 10-3. Team Auburn's down. And he leads them on a solid drive there. 21 seconds left. He hits Landon King for a touchdown. They go for 2. He goes for King again. They don't get it, but he showed a lot of good things too. I just liked the poise he showed. He had somewhat command of the offense. He didn't look lost out there on the field. I mean, this is a guy that was a few months ago was still in high school. He's an early enrollee, so very impressed. Very, very impressed with him. Offensive line, it's we'll see where that goes. I had guys that didn't play in this one to get that gelling, but quarterback wise, this is going into fall camp, and especially with Zach Calzada, all that. So we'll see where that goes. I think Calzada is going to be the quarterback, but I think Robbie Ashford really made a great step, a great claim to be part of this competition, because maybe some people are going to say, "Oh, it's just going to be Finley, Calzada." No, Robbie Ashford deserves to be in that conversation. Not much of tank. He had 5 attempts for 12 yards, but he had 3 catches for 28 yards. Now, Jarquez Hunter did not play in the game. He hasn't been playing in practice. Practicing. He's been dealing with an injury himself. But they did show. I like getting him involved in pass game. Now, Cole Kubler asked Brian Harsin about that. He said, well, we've done that before. I think they can really make a more concerted effort to get involved in the pass game when he's not the running back. It would be huge because he just has playmaking ability, and Auburn lacks playmakers at wide receiver. So you need to do all you can to get any playmakers out there, get the ball in their hand, and that's a way too. I think offensively you can have him and Hunter out there together, and that's going to be huge for this team. I think having both those two out there on the field at the same time will be a big, big thing for Auburn. So if you can put one or the other in the passing game, That's going to be interesting. See how they can create some mismatches on some stuff there with those two. They did get involved in tight end. Of course, when Gus Malzahn was coach, I always complained about that it did not get the tight ends involved enough. And I'm in a different chair than usually, guys. So if you see me rocking, I apologize. I have a hard time staying still. So if that's bothering you, I apologize. Anybody watching the video form of the podcast. But they got tight ends involved. Brandon Frazier had like 5 receptions, 42 yards. John Samuel Shanker, they tried to get him more involved. I think he had like 2. I don't have the stats from it, but he had like 2 or 3 catches in the game. But they really emphasized trying to get him the ball. They did a lot trying to get tight ends involved. So we'll see. And like I said, I couldn't gather much from the defense, so I'm not going to sit here and try to break down defense too much from the 8A game. I think defensively they've got some players there. We'll see how it all gels with them too. New coordinators, and they're Boise guys, they're Brian Harsin guys. Texas A&M, of course, a team that I believe I had to decide I was going to do this. I was going to power rank the SEC. But I do believe you have to go Alabama, Georgia, 1 and 2 in the SEC. And Alabama, Georgia play their spring games next week, so I have to talk about them. I will put A&M as the 3rd best team in the conference right now. They're looking ahead. And the thing with A&M, they've got all the talent. Obviously, we know the recruiting class coming in. All the top ESPN top 300 players they've got coming in, more than anybody. Once again, no one recruiting class. They've got talent all over the field. Running back, receivers, offensive line, defense. I mean, they've got everything. But what is holding this team back from being a true national championship team? But that's quarterback play. Inconsistency there. I mean, last year, Haynes King start. First game against Kent, 3 interceptions. He gets hurt against Colorado. Zach Calzada had to get his feet from up under him. Now, they lose to Arkansas. They lose to Mississippi State. They did beat Alabama, but then down the stretch, they lose to LSU. And, they go 8-5. 8-4. Not the season they wanted there at Texas A&M. As quarterback, you got to get, and they don't have to have like a Jameis Winston, which I've heard people say that with A&M. The talent is so good. Just look at Georgia. Georgia's the blueprint. Georgia, Stetson Bennett, not an NFL quarterback. You don't necessarily have an NFL quarterback when you have all this talent around them. And A&M does. Now, watching the spring game, I believe Max Johnson should be the quarterback. He looks more equipped to be it, and neither one of them was great. Max Johnson was 13 of 31, 117 yards, 2 touchdowns. Haynes King, 11 of 33, 130. He had a 21-yard rushing touchdown. And Max Johnson made some long runs too as well. He showed his running ability, which I believe he had at LSU. I think he showed his freshman year, those last 2 games they played against Florida, Ole Miss. I think he showed signs of that too as well. He took care of the ball, which was the big difference between him and Haynes King. Like I mentioned, the one game that we saw Haynes King play a whole game last year against Kent State, 3 interceptions. This game, he throws 2 interceptions, forced one over the middle, and he overthrew a guy over the middle. In the middle of the field, that's a dangerous area. And Jimbo Fisher is a quarterback's guy. He's got to be thinking, can I trust my quarterback to throw the ball over the middle? Will he not make mistakes? Because that can be what wins and loses games against Alabama. Or if you make it to Atlanta, playing Georgia, you can't have your quarterback making these mistakes. And Max Johnson doesn't make a whole lot of mistakes. He didn't at LSU. Haynes King, limited experience. And then that's another thing with Max Johnson. Look at a guy who started 2 games his freshman year. He started all last year for LSU. He is the more experienced quarterback of the 2. And I think that's who you need to ride with until Haynes King can get that turnover issue out of the way. And it doesn't seem like he's got that fixed in the spring from what he had in the 1 game we saw of him in a full game last season. Now, looking at the Florida State spring, I'm not even breaking this game down. I just have a gripe to get out of my system. I recorded a game. I had a family function last night on Saturday night. I'm recording this on Sunday. On Saturday night, I get home. I see, I DVR'd the Florida State spring game. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to watch this so I can talk about it on the podcast for Monday. I'm very excited. Very looking forward to this. And then I'm sitting here watching it. The announcers were not great. I'll just go say this. ACC Network dropped the ball with this one. And then the game is actually going on. There's gameplay going on, and the ACC Network keeps shooting at the interviews. Why action is going on? Not between possessions, or not you hearing the interview while you're seeing action on the field. No. You're just seeing the sideline reporter and whoever. Danny Cannell was one of them. Peter Bolwell was another one. There were several different ones that happened with. And then I'm sitting there watching it, and I got to the point where I just gave up. I just watched something else on television on Saturday night. They actually went to commercial in the middle of possession. More than once they did this. I'm like, I'm not being shown enough to actually give a thought on the spring game. So I just gave up on it. So ACC network, I didn't like how you were cutting games off or to go to another one. I mean, you have ESPN Plus, you have online. You could start those games online or whatever and continue these games. I know the spring games people say, well, they're not that big. It's not, you still want to see how, because some of these spring games are close. I kind of do want to watch how these teams react in a close game situation. That was one thing. But then what they did with the Florida State spring game, I was like, I'm done. I'm done with ACC Network for tonight. Hopefully next week. I know Miami's got the spring game, so I'm going to be watching that one. Got a bunch of good ones this week. Ohio State spring games this week. Got Georgia, Alabama, more SEC guys. I mean, USFL, I'm going to be watching that because I'm just a football junkie. I just love the sport. We're going to have a lot to talk about next week on the pod. Rest of the week, like I said, on Tuesday's podcast, Kevin McGuffey, my colleague from Last Word College Football, will be on. And then Thursday, plan on having John Johnson, sports editor, Dothan Eagle. We are going to talk about Troy. I'm a big fan of Troy Trojans. They're not that far from me. I know the Sun Belt, but I like talking Troy. On occasion, I'll have Troy guests here, players. Barry McKnight has made a visit on my podcast every single summer, so we'll talk Troy. But anyways, with John, he has been keeping up covering Troy spring practice. They've always been one of the better Sun Belt teams anyways, prior to Chip Lindsey. So we'll talk about them, but also get John's thoughts on Auburn, Alabama as well. So that's what you'll get on Thursday. Like I said, later in the week, I'll figure out what's going to go on Monday because I've been recording some podcasts on Sunday, of course.
You'll need to sign up for Amazon Music Unlimited Family Plan, which lets you choose from over 90 million songs on up to 6 accounts across multiple devices.
Alexa, stop.
Here's a station for you based on the song Let It Go from Frozen / soundtrack version by Idina Menzel.
Alexa,
on Amazon.
Stop. I apologize, everybody. You just heard my Alexa here on the podcast. But anyways, I hope that doesn't keep me with a copyright strike because she decided to start talking. Anyways, where was I at on all that? Okay. On next Monday's pod, because I've been recording these on Sundays. Well, Sunday's Easter, so that's going to be a family day. So either I'm going to try to record something with somebody this week to play on Monday, or you're going to get a best of interview. Past interview that I think was awesome. I'll play for you guys, but that's kind of what the plan is going to be for that day. Now, there will be a segment where I talk about the spring games, but also at the same time, I don't know what the guest situation is going to be for Monday's episode of podcast, and then I'll let you guys know who I was going to be on next week. And when I get those guys confirmed, we got some ideas, got some thoughts, but I'll let you guys know when. So finally, now this is the most important part of today's show. I mean, all the football stuff is great. We love it. We love it here. I mean, if anybody follows me on Twitter, you guys saw what I posted, and I've got a little thing here we're about to do here. It's very, very exciting. So on Fridays on the Phillip Jordan Sports Facebook page at P Jordan Media, I'm going to do Fun Fridays. A fun question, probably non-sports related, not going to be serious sports stuff anyways. And so the first one I did was, what is the best flavor of Doritos? I love Doritos. So many flavors. And actually, now when I was going over the list, I said, you know what? I need to get somebody on here, a good friend. We should do like a rankings of Doritos. I think it would be a fun podcast to do, fun content for sure. So who won? Who had the most? Cool Ranch, which is my favorite, got 5 votes. They had 2 for nacho cheese and spicy nacho, and then just regular taco flavor, which I don't know, maybe that merges into other ones. But anyway, that's what they put. So there was 1 on that. So that's your taco rankings or your Dorito rankings here. So anyways, that's it. That's going to do it for this edition of Phillip Jordan Show. Of course, I'll be joined by Kevin McGuffey from Last Word on College Football on Tuesday. You guys enjoy it. Me and Kevin have gone between 30 minutes and an hour. Last couple times we had conversations, so get ready, buckle in for a long podcast. I hope you check out the video form of the show or on YouTube. Just look at the Phillip Jordan Sports YouTube channel. Very, very easy to find. Of course, the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. And of course, you can check me out. You can email me at sports.philipjordan@gmail.com. Hope everybody has a great week. And as always, let kindness be your compass.